5 teenagers walk into Saturday detention as 5 simple stereotypes. One is the brain, one is the athlete, one is the basket case, one is the princess, and one is the criminal. But one character is easy to love, while another is almost impossible to defend. And the character you expect to hate might not be the worst one. So who actually deserves to be called the best and worst character in The Breakfast Club? The answer gets much more complicated than those 5 labels suggest. On March 24, 1984, 5 students arrive at Shermer High School for Saturday detention. They've all been reduced to a simple label. Brian Johnson is the brain, Andrew Clark is the athlete, Allison Reynolds is the basket case, Claire Standish is the princess, and John Bender is the criminal. Their principal, Richard Vernon, gives them a simple assignment. They have to write an essay explaining who they think they are. There's just one problem. Vernon already thinks he knows. To him, these students are categories, not complicated people. And that's exactly what makes this movie work. John Hughes doesn't spend the day proving these stereotypes are completely wrong. He shows what happens when you actually sit 5 of them in the same room. The entire movie traps these personalities inside one school for one Saturday. That simple setup leaves nowhere for their real personalities to hide. And that's exactly where the labels start breaking apart. There's nowhere for these characters to hide. Not from Vernon. And eventually, not from each other. Before we rank the 5 students, there's one adult who deserves a mention. Richard Vernon isn't one of the 5 students, but he's the adult most determined to keep them inside their labels. He watches them, threatens them, and tries to control every move they make. Then Vernon breaks his own rules. He secretly searches through confidential student files, only for the janitor Carl to catch him doing it. That's important, because Vernon doesn't just represent authority. He represents authority without much self-awareness. And that's why he's easy to dislike. But the real ranking starts with the 5 students themselves. Claire is introduced as the princess. And at first, she absolutely fits the label. She's wealthy. She's popular. She's socially confident. And she clearly understands the hierarchy of her school. But Claire's biggest flaw isn't simply that she's spoiled. It's that she believes those social rules are permanent. When the group starts getting closer, Claire admits something uncomfortable. Outside detention, she doesn't believe they could actually remain friends. Their school identities are too different. And that's one of the movie's most honest moments. Claire isn't pretending the social hierarchy doesn't exist. She knows exactly how powerful it is. And she's scared of losing her place inside it. That's what makes her more interesting than the princess label suggests. She knows that leaving detention doesn't mean those social rules disappear. She still has to live inside them on Monday morning. Then the movie gives her another layer. She admits that her parents pressured her into skipping school to go shopping. Her life looks perfect from the outside, but she's still being controlled by people around her. That's what makes Claire better than her stereotype. She's not suddenly a completely different person. She's simply allowed to explain herself. Still, Claire has another problem. She can recognize judgment in other people, but she doesn't always recognize it in herself. So she's complicated. But she's not the most complicated person in that library. That belongs to the athlete. Andrew is the athlete. He's strong, popular, and respected by other students. But his confidence starts cracking almost immediately. Andrew is in detention because he hurt another student. Later, he admits that pressure from his teammates helped push him into it. That confession changes how you see him, because Andrew isn't simply a victim of his father. He made a choice. He hurt somebody, and now he's beginning to understand why he did it. That's where Andrew becomes interesting. His father expects him to be a winner, not just in sports. In everything. Andrew feels like failure isn't an option. So he learns to perform the role his father expects. Strong, aggressive, successful, never uncertain. But inside detention, that performance starts falling apart. He eventually admits how much his father's expectations have shaped him. And suddenly, the athlete looks less like a bully and more like another teenager desperately trying to earn approval. That's one of Hughes's smartest ideas. The characters aren't innocent. They're incomplete. Andrew still did something terrible, but he's capable of recognizing it. And that puts him ahead of where he started. But the next character doesn't even need to pretend she's okay. Allison enters the movie as the basket case. She barely talks. She dresses differently. She behaves strangely, and she seems completely disconnected from everyone else. But there's something unusual about Allison. She doesn't really care about fitting in. At least, not in the same way Claire does. And unlike Andrew, she isn't trying to impress her parents. She's mostly invisible. Later, Allison reveals that she wasn't even sent to detention for a normal punishment. She came voluntarily. She had nowhere else to go. That's funny for about 3 seconds. Then it's actually pretty sad, because it tells you something important about her home life without needing a long explanation. She isn't desperate for popularity. She's desperate for attention, and that's why Allison might be the most misunderstood character in the movie. She spends most of the day hiding behind weird behavior, but once the group starts opening up, she becomes surprisingly honest. She talks about herself without the same concern for appearances, and when the others reveal their secrets, Allison doesn't suddenly become perfect. She simply becomes visible. That's a huge difference. But Allison's story has one more turn. The girl everyone dismisses as strange becomes someone Andrew genuinely connects with. And suddenly, the basket case doesn't look quite so broken anymore. But there's still one character whose problem is almost the opposite. He looks like he's got everything under control. He doesn't. Brian starts as the brain. He's smart. He's polite. He's obedient. He looks like the easiest student to understand. But underneath that perfect image is enormous pressure. Brian reveals that a failing grade in shop class became so devastating that he considered suicide. He'd brought a flare gun to school, and it accidentally went off in his locker. That confession completely changes the way you see him. The brain isn't simply intelligent. He's terrified of being imperfect. And suddenly, the quietest student in the room carries one of its heaviest stories. That's what makes Brian so important. He shows something the others don't. You don't have to be rebellious to be suffering. Sometimes the person following every rule is barely holding himself together. And Brian's story also gives the movie its final voice. He's the one who eventually writes the essay for the entire group. The answer rejects the simple labels Vernon gave them. The brain, the athlete, the basket case, the princess, the criminal. 5 labels, but 5 people. Brian might be the emotional center of the movie, but he isn't the character who's hardest to understand. That belongs to the person sitting right beside him. John Bender is the criminal. And from his first scene, he acts like he owns the room. He insults Vernon. He provokes Claire. He annoys Andrew. He manipulates the group. And he constantly pushes boundaries. As a character, he's magnetic. As a person, he's a nightmare. That's the contradiction that makes Bender so memorable. He's funny. He's fearless. He's quick. And he's also cruel. But then the movie reveals why. During one of the group's most serious conversations, Bender shows a cigar burn on his arm. It's evidence of abuse at home. Suddenly, the anger makes more sense. It doesn't excuse what Bender does. It explains where some of it comes from. And that distinction is crucial. Bender isn't simply the bad kid. He's a kid who's learned to attack people before they can hurt him. But here's where the movie gets complicated. Bender is also responsible for some of the ugliest behavior in the film. His treatment of Claire repeatedly crosses the line from teasing into harassment. The fact that he has suffered doesn't erase the harm he causes. And that's exactly why Bender is such a difficult character to rank. He's one of the worst behaved people in the movie, but he's also arguably the most compelling character to watch. He's unpredictable, he's funny, he's damaged, and he's impossible to ignore. Even his rebellion has a purpose. He's fighting the same labels everyone else is fighting. He's just doing it louder, and far more aggressively. That's why putting Bender at number 1 doesn't mean he's the nicest person. It means he's the character who creates the most tension, reveals the most contradiction, and gives the movie its strongest dramatic conflict. And that distinction matters. But ranking these characters isn't the same as judging them. If we're judging pure behavior, Bender is the hardest to defend. He bullies people. He deliberately provokes others. And some of his treatment of Claire hasn't aged well at all. But if we're judging character complexity, Bender becomes much harder to dismiss. Brian is the emotional center. Andrew has one of the clearest moments of accountability. Allison has the strongest case for being misunderstood. Claire shows how powerful social status can become. And Bender carries the biggest contradiction of them all. He's damaged. He's cruel. He's funny. He's vulnerable. And none of those things cancel the others out. That's the real answer to the title. The best character isn't necessarily the nicest. The worst character isn't necessarily the most damaged. The real difference is whether you can see the person underneath the label. And that's why The Breakfast Club still works. Because most people eventually discover something these 5 teenagers learn in one day. You can be popular and still feel alone. You can be intelligent and still feel worthless. You can look strong and still be terrified of disappointing someone. You can act strange because nobody ever bothered to understand you. And you can hurt people while carrying your own pain. That's what makes these characters feel bigger than their stereotypes. The labels were easy. The people underneath them were not. When these 5 students arrived that morning, they were supposed to be 5 completely different people. By the end, they had discovered something Vernon never understood. They weren't just a brain, an athlete, a basket case, a princess, and a criminal. They were teenagers, trying to figure out who they were. And that's why the final essay hits so hard. It doesn't erase the labels. It shows that every one of them was incomplete. 5 labels, 5 people, and after one Saturday, those labels don't feel nearly as simple anymore. If you want more character breakdowns from the movies that defined their era, subscribe. And if you haven't watched our Top Gun breakdown yet, that's the one to watch next, the link in descriptions, or check end screen. Because sometimes the most interesting part of a movie isn't what the characters do, it's why they do it.